think it just pays massive dividends if you're a business. Why would you serve an average pint of beer if you can serve a brilliant one? Why would you make a poor cocktail when you can, do it right? So I think I trained myself into that way of being by running a very busy cellar full of very brilliant beers.
Welcome to the Lush Life podcast. I'm your drinking companion, Susan Schwartz, and I bring you the how-to guide for living life one cocktail at a time. Thanks to my mother's love of martinis, the first words I spoke were shaken, not stirred, and I've been obsessed by cocktails ever since. Together, we'll learn from bartenders, brand ambassadors, distillers, and others why certain drinks are popular in certain cultures, how to make the perfect old-fashioned, when to shake and when to stir, and so much more. Hear that sound? It's time to cozy up to the bar and let the fun begin. I should have known it would all come full circle. I was chosen to be the Norse god Freya in my 4th grade school play. If anyone knows anything about Freya, they know she has the reputation of being the party girl of Asgard. She can't help it if she's the goddess of nature and fertility. When our guest today, David Wallwork, was naming his Birch spirit, only Freya would do. It's a spirit I was destined to love, and I couldn't wait to find out his story.
I grew up in Bolton, which is just north of Manchester. Not nice, classic family, mum, dad, younger pesky brother. Had a great time, played a lot of football, did all the stuff that kids do back then. Worked ridiculously hard at school, and then ran away to university and kind of didn't go back. Ran away to Norwich and did environmental science at university.
So you came down south for
yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, Norwich is kind of a really cool, interesting town. It's almost it almost feels abroad. It's surrounded by quite a lot of countryside for a long way, so it's a long way from anywhere. So I really enjoyed it. Absolutely loved it.
And a beautiful part of the country.
It is an absolutely beautiful part of the country. The Norfolk Broads is a fabulous place to kind of go hanging around and mucking around on boats, and that's always good fun. And we've got some friends who've got boats on the Broads, and we go and muck about up there every year. And we've still got friends back in Norwich, and had 3 great years at university, and then ended up running a great big pub in Norwich for the first couple of years of my job outside of university. So,
but before that, you said you were studying environmental studies.
Yeah, did environmental science.
Science.
Yeah, quite a while ago actually. Before it became a super fashionable thing to do. It was a subject area I was quite interested in, and it was also a really good way of carrying on studying some subjects that I'd done back at school that I really enjoyed and was reasonably good at. So I've always been really interested in biology and marine biology and ecology and these kind of areas, and that was a really good degree that allowed me to do that and carry on doing some geology, which I was just really good at A level. So it was a really good degree for me, and I really enjoyed it. But more than that, I just enjoyed the social side of the whole university scene. I spent my entire life running beer festivals and organising parties. And
of course, university is the best years of your life, and environmental sciences is super of the moment right now.
Yeah.
So where was the leap from environmental studies to your career in beverages?
It kind of when I graduated from university, it was I kind of graduated into a recession. The early 90s was a tough time to get a job. There really weren't a lot of postgraduate jobs around. Really, it was a really bad time, and you took the work you could get. And I happened to be working part time in a pub whilst I was in my final year at university. And just as I was graduating, the role of manager came available, and they offered me a live above the pub and run the pub job, which felt like a pretty good way of carrying on the university lifestyle for a couple of years. So I said yes to that, and
So obviously you enjoyed working at the pub.
Yeah, it's a brilliant, it's a brilliant way of spending time. It's incredibly hard work. I mean, huge respect for people who actually run bars and pubs, because the bit that the consumer sees is the kind of standing behind the bar doing the customer facing thing, and it's you have to be always smiling, always interacting, and always making the drinks and getting the quality right and doing all of that. But the work behind the scenes is immense. The stock taking and the cellar management and the replenishing of stock and the cleaning and the staff management and the cashing of the till and all of that stuff is just endless, and it is a proper business. The amount you learn by running a pub or running a bar is huge. And it's all the same disciplines that you then start to apply if you end up running businesses later on in your life, because it's the same stuff. It's about people, it's about customers, it's about stock, it's about cash flow, it's all of those same things. So I actually really enjoyed the kind of non-customer facing side of it, but I also, as a reasonably sociable person, really enjoyed the customer facing side of it as well. And we were an incredibly busy pub, and we had a brewery in the back, and we made our own beers, and we had a huge range of craft beers and guest ales before that became a big thing.
You were pretty young at that time.
Yeah. I was straight out of university, and so I was running this place, and we were quite famous locally for doing a very wide range of beers, and we did 220 beers, I think, in the 2 years I was there. So we changed, and I was completely in charge of selecting those, which again is just great fun. Straight out of university, it's kind of talking to every brewery in the land about their different products and choosing the ones that you think might be fun to sell, and just being kind of in charge, and just a great thing. And of course you put all your friends behind the bar, and all your other mates go to the other side of the bar, and you sell them drinks. So,
were you a big beer drinker then?
I used to. I think what I became was an incredibly fussy beer drinker through that process. The process of making sure that properly cellared beer is served perfectly. It is quite an art, and there's an awful lot of bars historically have got that quite wrong, and I became unbelievably fussy. Unbelievably. But I am kind of, I am a little bit of a perfectionist on a few things, and I just don't know why you would do something wrong when it's just slightly harder to do it right. So I do. I like to go places that go the extra mile and do the extra thing and care enough to do things properly, and I think it just pays massive dividends if you're a business. Why would you serve an average pint of beer if you can serve a brilliant one? Why would you make a poor cocktail when you can do it right? So I think I trained myself into that way of being by running a very busy cellar full of very brilliant beers for very demanding consumers.
That was the beginning of the craft beer movement, really.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, we were one of those very early pubs that had a brewery in the back, and we were actually making our own stuff as well as buying in the really unusual beers from all over the country. And we had stuff. We were the kind of the place you went if you wanted to find something you'd never tried before. And I actually really liked that. I thought that was great. Why should everybody drink the same stuff? Why shouldn't you be able to go somewhere and get something that's cool and interesting and different and breaking the rules a little bit? And I quite liked all that stuff. So I thoroughly enjoyed that job. But I guess after a while you kind of go, this isn't a very big town, and I'm getting a little bit itchy feet now, and it might be time to go and do something different. But what I really enjoyed was a lot of, as well as the kind of the selecting the beers and the front of house stuff, was talking to all the sales reps. So I really quite liked it when the brewery guys were coming in, and the spirits guys were coming in, and I quite liked what they were spending their time doing. I thought that might be an interesting kind of career.
You mean the teaching part of it?
No, I just quite liked the fact that these guys were going around and just interacting with lots of different people, and trying to understand what was right for one customer and what was right for a different customer, and looking at their portfolio of products and trying to fit the right products to the right people. And I thought that might be something that might be a bit more expansive a thing to do than just being at the same bar the whole time running the bar.
And how do you go finding a job like that?
I wrote to every single brewery in the UK with my CV and said, give me a job. Way back then, some of the big breweries owned some of the big soft drinks companies, and one thing led to another, and through a series of interviews I ended up being offered a job at Britvic Soft Drinks. So I went I went down to London and ended up working at Britvic Soft Drinks in what started off as a sales role, and then I won I was in a sales team, and I won the sales incentive every month, 6 months back to back, to the point where my manager asked me how I was doing it, and I said, I'm not telling you, because I was just gaming the system. You know, they'd written a set of rules for the sales incentive program, and I'd thought my way past it, and I was within the rules, doing things that guaranteed that I won every single month. So they kicked me out of the sales job and sent me up to head office to write a better sales incentive program for the sales team. So I found myself in the trade marketing team at head office 6 months after I launched, and creating sales incentive programs for the national sales team, which was quite a good way of getting shoved up to head office. So I then found myself in the marketing side of the business. And I just did a whole bunch of different roles at Britvic for what ended up as 5 years. And Britvic, of course, is the Pepsi bottler. So I did a lot of work with the Pepsi team and was involved in the Pepsi Max launch and various other exciting stuff. And I had a good time, great business. And after 5 years, I then got a phone call from a recruitment guy who was working for the opposition in the cola wars. And one thing led to another, and I ended up accepting a job over at Coca-Cola.
I saw that in my research. I was wondering how you got from Pepsi to Coke.
Yeah, I went from blue to red, and not an awful lot of people do that actually on the way through. There's a little bit of a thing within there certainly used to be about you don't really hire the other guy. But I did that. Got a pretty frosty reception from some of the people in the Coca-Cola world at the time. You
would think that they would welcome you in and want to know all the secrets, right?
Well, I certainly wasn't taking any secrets with me,
right.
But it was quite odd. You know, there were some people who really disapproved of hiring the opposition. But you then quickly get past that by doing stuff.
I guess that must have been odd for you, because you'd been such a people person and your job was all people related, and then to come into something and then them not to.
They were back then quite different organisations. Mm-hmm. You know, the whole Britvic and Pepsi family was very friendly. And great business, still very commercial, doing great things and doing great brand work. The Coca-Cola system was doing all of those things as well, but just felt like it had a much more ruthless commercial edge to it and was a bit more driven. I guess that took a little bit of adjusting to, but once you got your head around it, I found myself thriving quite well there, and ended up again getting moved around jobs a few times over the next few years, and ended up doing 5 years there. Towards the end of which I was in a reasonably big job in the marketing team, and I found myself being one of the guys who was really pushing the idea of looking at the slightly wider category of drinks other than just fizzy drinks. By definition, the Coca-Cola organisation has got fizzy drinks at its front and centre, and it became quite obvious to me and a bunch of other people that long term there was a lot of consumers out there who were looking for healthier, more natural drinks made with less artificial ingredients and that were more likely to be still rather than sparkling, because fizzy drinks tended at the time to be quite sugary, and there was not a lot of that stuff in the portfolio at the time at Coke. So I did a lot of work on innovation around that stuff, looking at brands we could bring in from the international portfolio into the UK, and just trying to advocate internally for there to be more of a focus on those healthier and more natural brands, which was good, and we did some great things. But being me, I got a little frustrated with the speed of change on that, and
it's a big company.
It's a big company. They're focused on what they're focused on, and that's quite right too, because that's where they make the money, and that's brilliant.
I mean, Coke will always be Coke.
Absolutely right, and it has a great big portfolio of brands outside of that, and has, since I was there, acquired some amazing brands in the healthier drinks and still drinks area. But I was doing as much as I was able to in that space.
Do you think that you got that little innovation bug when you started to create things and wanted to create your own things?
I think that it's just been a kind of a running theme all the way through. I mean, even back to when I was running the pub, you know, it was all about bringing in interesting new things that people hadn't tried before. And when I was specifically in a role which said, you know, what sort of drinks do we think people want to drink in the future? That kind of suited me really well because I really enjoyed the kind of research and analysis side of that, but I also really enjoyed doing something about it in terms of creating brands and innovating. And I really liked the fact that was driving towards more natural ingredients and healthier drinks and all of that area, because I just feel like that should be a bigger part of the world. You know, I think it's important that people have healthier products. And more natural products and better made products and better quality products, and so I did a lot of stuff on innovation around that with that business, and then, you know, in the classic kind of, you know, got a bit frustrated by there being too many committee meetings kind of thing. Why don't I go and do this for myself? I, you know, dragged a couple of mates down to the pub and said, look, why don't we go and do this? And grabbed a couple of guys, and we ended up, after many coffees and many beers, you know, all handing our notice in together and walking out of there as three reasonably senior guys in the marketing team and starting our own soft drinks company.
That's really daring.
There's an awful lot of people who've done it across a lot of different categories. You know, there's a lot of people who get bored of the big corporate life and go and do their own thing, and there's tons of entrepreneurs doing it right now. You know, so it's not unusual or unique. It's just a thing. You know, not everyone does it, but you know, enough people have done it that it's not all that unusual. But we, you know, we were three of these sort of senior new product development type people from that organisation, and we went and started a soft drinks company, and we did, you know, we said, right, okay, if you were starting a soft drinks company from a blank piece of paper, you know, what would you do? Well, you'd use nice natural ingredients that people feel good about drinking, and you'd market the brand in a way that made people smile and feel good, and you know, we just had these conversations with ourselves about the kind of business we'd be and the kind of product you'd be and the kind of ingredients you'd use. And we just kept finding the words feel good coming up in the conversation the whole time, so we called it Feel Good Drinks. And then I ended up running Feel Good Drinks for 14 years, which was a huge, you know, huge amount of fun. You know, we won a lot of awards, we sold a lot of drinks, we exported all over the world, you know, we did good stuff, you know, we made beautiful products. It was juice drinks, flavoured waters, all healthy natural stuff, you know, no added sugar, no artificial ingredients, and we were one of several brands across several categories that were simultaneously pushing the idea that it's a good idea to, you know, consume less sugar, consume less artificial ingredients, drink more natural things, and do things in a nice way that makes people feel good and spread that feel goodness around. And you know, we just happen to have that as our brand name. And there are people effectively running very similar brands across yogurts and dairy and smoothies and all sorts of other product categories, because there was just a huge consumer trend towards all of those things. You know, people do want nicer ingredients, people do want healthier lifestyles, and people do want, you know, to know where their ingredients are coming from, and they do want companies that do things ethically and properly, and you know, pay people properly, and all of those other good things. And there's just been a huge wave over the last 20 years of all of that, and we were doing that in juice drinks, and other people were doing it in other areas. And so, you know, over a very, very long period of time, I did that, and then eventually we sold the Feel Good brand to a bigger company in the soft drinks industry in early 2015, and I promised my other half that we'd, you know, I'd put my feet up and relax for 6 months.
Only 6 months.
Having had some, you know, reasonably busy times over the previous period, and within weeks, I found myself talking to other entrepreneurs in the soft drink space who were asking my advice, asking if I would get involved, and so I ended up doing some bits of consultancy and just helping out with various brands, and really re-engaging in what was right at the cutting edge in soft drinks, and getting, you know, looking at new ingredients and things that are happening. And I guess that's where the kind of idea for what I'm doing now came from, because one of the things that was kind of super hot at exactly that point in time, and remains very, very interesting right now, was this whole concept of, what's going to be the next big thing after coconut water. And one of the things that was really emerging in that space was birch water.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's the same thing. It's natural ingredients from a beautiful part of the world, sourced in a sustainable and traditional way that doesn't damage the environment, and then very simply packaged up and served to the consumer in a way that is, very attractive to people who are living a healthier lifestyle, where they're seeking, more natural products and products that are produced with care and love and which reflect their personal lifestyle values. So I was kind of talking to guys who were using that birch water as an ingredient, and I just thought this is brilliant stuff. This is kind of the perfect example of pretty much everything I've been doing all my career, which has been about healthier, more natural ingredients turned into products in a way that's again done with some consideration to produce products which are different and interesting and brilliant for consumers. But of course, I didn't want to just make another soft drink in the same way, because I'd be competing with the guys I was helping, which would have been a bit rude. So I just started thinking about what else could you do with this ingredient. And birch sap is a great ingredient. It's got natural sugars in it. It's got lots of other nice natural things in there that are healthy. But anything that's got natural sugars in it can be fermented. And so I just started wondering to myself whether or not you could create something outside of soft drinks from birch sap. And that led to various conversations with other people, and just started bouncing ideas around. And fast forward 2 years, and here we are. So I guess the kind of product I kind of envisaged when I started thinking about alcoholic versions of birch water was a spirit brand that was made with birch sap as its kind of starting point and as its base ingredient, that would be smooth to drink, refreshing, and create an alternative to other product categories. I do come in. I'm not a spirits industry guy, but I do look at the spirits industry and kind of wonder to myself why things have to be in those categories. Why should vodka, gin, rum, whiskey be, a few others be all there is? Why can't there be other things that people create from scratch to give people a choice? I think that's. I don't know who gets to set the rules on that.
I think the rules are changing day to day because of people like you and new products and things like that.
I think they're changing because people want them to. I think the consumers are kind of asking, for new things, and there's loads of fantastic brands within each of those categories and masses of innovation in each of those categories, and that's brilliant. And people are really stretching the boundaries of some of those categories in new and interesting and exciting ways, which is fantastic. But why should you just be within those categories? Why not kind of pop out the other side and do something else?
Absolutely.
So my starting point wasn't kind of how do I make a rum or a gin or a tequila or something. My starting point was I've got this amazing ingredient. What would happen if you fermented and distilled from it?
So I want to slow down in that area because that's super interesting about how this came to be in this bottle.
Yeah.
So you had this idea.
Yeah.
So I want you to unpack it a little.
Yes. Okay. So
it could have tasted terrible. You never know. So
it really could have. So we start with what the ingredient is.
Uh-huh.
So the ingredient is the sap of birch trees. So birch trees are one of the most abundant trees in the world. They grow in massive profusion all across Scandinavia, the Baltics, all across northern Russia, down into northern Japan. So there's millions and millions of birch trees. In quite a lot of that territory, it's a very traditional thing to do in the springtime, to go out into the forest and tap the trees and extract the sap of the trees, and use it in various traditional ways, including drinking it. The other common thing to do with it is to boil it down into syrup, which is exactly how the Canadians make maple syrup. It's made from maple sap boiled down. And there are various other things that people do with birch sap. That's been happening in those parts of the world forever, for absolutely forever. And it's a really, you talk to people who are from that part of the world, and many of them have got memories of going out into the forest with grandparents in the springtime and tapping trees and drinking the sap and doing nice things and taking it home and making things with it. And it's a really nice conversation with people about that process. And it's done in a very sustainable way. The trees aren't damaged. You want to tap that tree again next year or the year after. So, it's very with the zeitgeist of the moment in terms of sustainable ingredients sourced from the wild. It's almost foraged. So it's a nice thing, birch sap, and the liquid itself it's clear. It's got some sugars in it. It's got some amino acids and minerals in it. It tastes great, and you can do different things with it. So that's the kind of base ingredient, and the farmers will go out into the forest and they'll tap it and collect it, and then they'll sell it to farmers' collectives who sell it on to organisations that want to use it in various different ways, or they'll sell it and consume it locally. So there's a lot of it out there, and it's sourced in a very nice way. And as I say, there are guys now selling it as a soft drink here and doing great with it, and that's brilliant. And they're blending it with fruits from the forest and all sorts of good things, and that's fantastic stuff.
So you took some of this sap.
So what I did was I kind of took some of that sap, and I said to myself, here's a liquid from nature with some natural sugars in it. I wonder if you could ferment it and do something interesting with it, and what would you get out the other end of that process? So of course what you need if you're going to do that is someone who's a distiller and knows what they're talking about. I'm not a distiller. Not my thing. But I know people who are. So I kind of asked around. I've got a fairly wide network of contacts in the drinks industry, as you can imagine. So, and I got introduced to Dr. John Walters, the English spirits distiller. He's a fantastic distiller. He's a person who believes that you can make products from raw ingredients and produce products here in England that are as good as products that come from the places that they more traditionally come from. He makes incredible rum, for example, and has won many awards for his rums. An English rum winning international awards. That's pretty good. So
did he like the idea of
He
this?
really liked the idea. He had no idea what would happen when he went through the process of trying to create the product. So I got hold of a couple of 100 litres of birch sap and gave it to John, and he's taken that, and what we're doing is we get the sap and it's frozen as soon as it comes out of the tree, so it retains its freshness. We bring it across frozen. So I sent him 200 litres of frozen birch sap. He defrosted it. He added a little sugar. He added his strain of yeast that he's developed at the distillery. He fermented it for 7 days. He then distilled it. The stills he uses are all handmade on site to his specifications. So he distilled it. It comes off the still at a high ABV, and he then diluted it down to 40%, which is about right for a premium spirit, using purified water, but also just using a little bit of birch sap in the end product. And he gave me a call and he said, "Come back up, I've got something, let's try it." And we sat down and we drank half a bottle of it. And,
so fantastic! So it didn't really take that long to get what you wanted.
It was pretty good. We made a tiny tweak to the process to get it exactly where we wanted it to be. But he's made a spirit which is really smooth. It really fills the mouth, so it feels like a really grown-up spirit that when you're drinking it. But it's got lots of fresh flavours in it and lots of nice natural flavours in it, and it's quite distinctive. It's not overpoweringly strong, so that you would only want a couple of drops in it of it in a cocktail or in a drink. It's a proper alternative to a vodka tequila gin with the same level of flavour as a gin or a tequila, and much more flavour than most vodkas. But it's a distinctive set of flavours. It is quite different. Not all the flavour in the product is coming from the birch, and it's been incredibly well received. It really does taste different than any of those other products. It's got very nice kind of fresh green natural flavours up front, and it kind of fades to a light woody flavour at the end, and it just creates a really nice alternative to those spirits when you start making cocktails, or making long, refreshing drinks. A Freya with a herbal tonic So an elderflower tonic, for example, and maybe some fresh mint leaves in the glass. It's a delicious thing, it's really nice. As an alternative to a gin and tonic, that's a really nice thing, and quite a different flavour.
And it's been so well received that you have another one.
We have, yeah. So we launched in November 16, and I'll come back and talk a little bit maybe about why it's called Freya in a second. But so we launched in November 16, and what we really wanted to do was just kind of introduce the brand to the best cocktail bars and see what the response would be. And we've just had a lot of uptake from really good bars, because they are. The bartenders sell a lot of drinks and they interact with a lot of spirits brands, and they're always interested to try something new and different, and they've found that they can really tell stories with the brand. So they can we've not gone and told them how to serve Freya. We've said to them, this is what it is, this is how we make it, this is where it's from, this is why it's different, and we've let them taste it. They've really enjoyed it, and then they've created cocktails around that are either completely unique, and where they're pairing Freya with other natural ingredients or other ingredients from the forest or other ingredients from Scandinavia, or they're taking a classic cocktail that's normally made with a white spirit, changing that spirit out for Freya and making a contemporary twist on a classic cocktail, both of which work really, really well. And we've had some amazing Freya martinis and Freya margaritas and white Negronis and all sorts of good things. But a year after we launched, I wanted to kind of say thank you to the bartenders who really looked after us in that first year and had been experimental and had done some good things. So as a limited edition, we made a smoked version of Freya. So Freya was the Norse goddess of many things, actually. She was the Norse goddess of love and fertility and gold and war to an extent. Worshipped primarily in the springtime when the trees were coming back to life. The birch tree is sacred to Freya because she was a fertility goddess at heart, but a very powerful, dominant female character, and just a great embodiment for the brand, and for today's drinkers. So Freya's the brand, and Freya's worshippers used to build campfires, and they would purify themselves in the smoke of the fire before they went to worship Freya. And they would build their fires from different woods, and each wood represented something different. So we kind of looked back into the story and tried to select the same woods that they used, and then we burned those woods and infused the smoke into Freya to make Freya Wood Smoke, which is the new product. And it's a really, really interesting product because you get all the smoothness and natural flavour of Freya, but you get this big, lingering campfire smoke flavour through there as well. And it's just really good. It just works. Just drink it straight out of the glass. It's really nice. Drink it over ice. Absolutely terrific. It's if you're someone who likes a smoky whiskey or a smoky mezcal, it kind of does that job, but differently and smoother than a lot of those products. It's just a really nice thing. It's just about giving the bartender and the consumer something different they can play with. And we've found that it just by chance, it just happens to make one or two cocktails incredibly well. It makes a great Bloody Mary, that kind of smoky, campfire-y notes through it with the kind of spiciness, and the tomato works amazingly well. And we found that it also makes an incredible espresso martini, so the kind of roast coffee with the smoky, natural flavours of Freya Wood Smoke, they just go together like a dream. So we've had quite a lot of fun with that, and again, bartenders are experimenting and making lighter versions of whiskey cocktails with Freya Wood Smoke and really enjoying that. So we launched it as a limited edition and just did gave bottles as a thank you to all the bartenders who'd been working with us previously. But the response was so good that we've kind of launched it permanently now. So we've got Freya Birch Spirit and we've got Freya Wood Smoke. And they're both out there, and we're starting to see some Freya Wood Smoke cocktails appearing on bar menus now, and it's good. There's some really, really nice serves starting to pop up out there, so we're really enjoying that.
I've got to try one of those espresso martinis.
It's honestly, you'll never have an unsmoked espresso martini again.
Should we go try one now?
We can do that if you like, yeah, definitely.
Next time someone asks me to take the Pepsi challenge, I'm asking for Freya. Thanks so much to David for being on the show. That espresso martini was fabulous, but it was the Freya Spritz that is going to be added to the list of my favorite summer cocktails. Which brings us to our cocktail of the week. Light, summery, and easy to make, the Freya Spritz should be added to your summer cocktail list too. Take a large chilled balloon wine glass and add 10 ml of elderflower cordial to it. Then swirl it around the glass. Half fill the glass with large ice cubes and a squeezed wedge of lemon, and then add in 25 ml of Freya Birch Spirit, 50 ml of soda water, and 75 ml of good dry white wine. Stir and serve. Add fresh lemon and rosemary to garnish. You'll find this recipe and all the cocktails of the week on lushlifemanual.com, where you'll also find all the ingredients in our shop. If you've liked what you've heard today, then please rate us on iTunes. It really helps. Thank you. Next episode will be in London at a brand new bar that was inspired by a torrid love affair between Lady Charlotte Louisa Fitzrovia and Lochandwala's notorious street boss Vijay. Find out all the dirty details then. Until next time, bottoms up. Thanks for listening to the Lush Life Podcast, the sister of A Lush Life Manual. For more information and links to everything you heard, plus a bit more, please visit allushlifemanual.com. Always remember the wise words of Oscar Wilde. All things in moderation, including moderation. And always drink responsibly. Okay, I said that last part. Theme music is by Steven Shapiro and used with permission. Lush Life is produced by Evo Terra, and I'm your hostess, Susan Schwartz. I'll see you at the bar.